But really, the big change that's happening in our lives and in our organizations is data. Data's deathly boring when it starts, right? So data is this wonderful thing. I am telling you now, data is the fuel for our future. Data is the thing that will deliver transformation in your organizations, in how you live your lives, and in what you do for a living. But data is misunderstood. We have to start reframing what data can do for us. And the first thing that data can do for us is it enables us to find fundamentally different answers to the questions we've been asking ourselves for years. Specifically, when you have more and more data, those answers start to change. This is my favorite example of this. Here's two vehicles, right? On one hand, we have a Toyota Prius. On the other, we have a Land Rover Defender. Which one of these two vehicles is better for the planet? Put your hands up if you think it's the Toyota Prius. Put your hands up if you think it's a trick question and you think it's the Land Rover Defender. Put your hand up if you want to be a management consultant and you know the answer is, it depends, right? Because it does depend. The answer depends on how broad a view of the data you take. If we take a narrow view of data, what we would do typically today, we'd look at things like fuel consumption. Of course, if you look at fuel consumption, the best vehicle of these two for the planet is the Toyota Prius. That thing runs on water and pixie dust, hugs trees when you drive by, not like the Defender, drinks diesel, man. Well, the Americans, they took a systemic view. They took a really broad view of the data. They did a survey called Dust to Dust back in 2008. And they basically looked for the creation of the components that go to make the vehicle through to the point at which the vehicle is thrown on the scrap heap. The best vehicle out of these two for the planet is actually the Land Rover Defender. Now, why is that true? Well, because over 75% of every Land Rover ever made over the last 60 years is still on the road. You cannot break these vehicles. Trust me, I've tried several times. And if you do break them, you can fix them with bubble gum and baling twine. But the simple point here, this is not an advertisement for Land Rover, but it's simply to say just by having access to more data, the answer to the questions that you're asking will fundamentally change. So you should surround yourselves with data. You should never be in a position where you think you've got too much data, because you can never have too much data. But what you do have to be careful with is how you link the data together. Because it's really easy when you've got lots of data together to start drawing some really spurious correlations. And this is why I love the internet. Somebody did a lot of work in research into this problem and basically used this example to illustrate the problems of spurious data connection. So what the gentleman wanted to do is he basically said, I wonder if there is a correlation between the average temperature of the Earth and the number of pirates operating in the Indian Ocean. And to his surprise, what he found over time, as the number of pirates operating in the Indian Ocean drops, the average temperature of the Earth rises. So, ladies and gentlemen, based on the evidence in front of you, I would say, if we truly want to save the planet, it is not wind farms, it is not solar energy we need, it is simply more pirates. Arr! This is the danger of spurious data correlation. But the real gift of data is yet to come. And this is something that's very close to us and is going to change again the way we do our business, the way we live our lives. And this is using lots and lots of data to accurately predict what will happen. Now, we use data today in a reflective way. We run a campaign or a project, we amass a bunch of data, we look at the data afterwards, and we use the data to reflect on what has happened. We're moving into a world where I use the data before I start the project to tell you exactly what will happen. This is already happening today. Companies like Microsoft, Facebook, and Google are already doing it. Microsoft, over the last 18 months, we did the World Cup a few years ago. We got 15 out of 16 World Cup games right. We did the Scottish referendum. We got that right within 2% of the public vote. We've done X Factor. We do Pop Idol. We even bizarrely did the Eurovision Song Contest, ladies and gentlemen. A proud moment for me. And we're getting it right. And the thing about this is, better still, we're making the tools that make this possible available to every organization, to individuals. How would your business run? How would you run what you run for your organizations in a world where you could accurately predict the outcome of any given scenario? These are questions you have to start asking yourself, because this stuff is coming. It's coming, that's going to change how we work. The thing that's driving this, thing that makes this possible, is a technology called machine learning. It's basically statistical-based pattern recognition. It's how algorithms are made. You have used this technology, you use it every day, and I will bet you can remember the first time you were ever aware of it, because it was probably the first time you used a search engine, and as you were typing in a query, the search engine auto-completed the sentence for you before you'd even finished typing. And if you were like me, you were like, that was a bit weird. I'm looking over my shoulder, seeing who's watching. Statistical-based pattern recognition. All the search engine's doing is it's saying, based on the characters you've just typed in, and against the billions of other queries that have been typed into me today, the statistical probability of you going on to complete the sentence is like 99%, so I'm going to suggest it as that answer. Now, that basic ability to spot patterns in lots of data enables us to build the most amazing transformational services. These things will change not only how we work, they will change how we relate to each other as humans, they will change how we live our lives. This is my favorite example. It's a Microsoft example, but there are plenty of others out there. This is using the power of machine learning to provide real-time speech-to-speech language translation. Now, Microsoft does it with Skype. So we had a gentleman speaking German, lady speaking English, connected via Skype. Gentleman speaks German, lady hears English. Lady speaks English, gentleman hears German. Real time, no human being involved, just a very, very clever algorithm doing some amazing things, spotting patterns in data. I want you to think for a moment about the transformational nature of this kind of technology, because I do. I've got a 9-year-old son. On the basis of this kind of technology, do I bother to get him to learn a foreign language at school? Because the chances are, by the time he enters his world of work, it will be a redundant skill. Now, I get that's provocative. I get there are lots of reasons why we learn foreign languages at school. The reality is, this kind of technology, my son will learn 1 or 2 languages at school, but when he leaves school, he will be able to speak another 152 languages as a result of this technology. He will be able to travel anywhere in the world and be able to communicate and collaborate and enjoy cultures in a way that was never before possible. This is what this kind of technology enables. We have to figure out, as a society, how we want to deal with that. What are we going to do? How are we going to help people live up to the opportunity that it offers? If you want to know how it works, here's a really simple example. This comes from some real proper grown-up academic research done by Cambridge University. This is how algorithms work. So basically, what researchers proved is if you speak English, as long as I keep the first and last characters of a word in the right place, I can mix up all of the other characters. I can even misspell words, and you'll still be able to read the words. Can you read the text on the slide? Most people can. And what I love about this is it's completely contradictory to the way that we're taught language at school. Because when we're at school, we're taught that language is logical. We're taught that language follows rules. We're taught things like I before E except after C. But what they never tell you is that there are 923 exceptions to the I before E rule. There are more exceptions to the I before E rule than there are to the bloody rule itself. Language isn't logical. It doesn't follow rules, it follows patterns. And we innately know this as human beings because from the day we learn to read until the day we die, we curate and tend and improve that pattern. Every time you read something, you make that pattern better. And the point is, the lovely thing about this example is it also shows you the limitation of algorithms because they're only as good as the patterns they're provided with. What do you think happens when I show this slide to someone who's just beginning to learn to speak English? Or if I'd shown it to my son maybe 4 or 5 years ago when he was just forming his own language skills? Well, they haven't got enough of the pattern. They cannot read this. It's nonsensical. And that's why for the next few years, we're not moving into this world. We're not moving into a world where the algorithms answer our email and the robots do all their heavy lifting. Because we have to create the patterns. We have to contextualize the patterns. In robotics, there are other lovely things that are going to prevent the robots from taking over in the near term. There's this beautiful thing called Moravec's paradox, which is essentially everything that you think is really hard dead simple for algorithms to do. The cognitive stuff, the calculations, really, really simple, right? But everything that we take for granted, fine motor skills, the ability to walk around, pick stuff up without crushing, really, really difficult for robots to do. So actually, while the people in the knowledge industry are going to be displaced and disrupted by the algorithms, the people who we've perhaps marginalized in the past, the manual laborers, the chefs, the plumbers, the tiler, all that stuff, fantastic job for life, certainly for the next few decades. So how can you use any of this stuff? How can you use this to make a difference in what you do today? Well, the first thing you've got to understand is that if you want to be a part of an organization that's delivering transformational experiences to your customers, the only way you can do this is if you have 2 other things. Number one, you need everybody in your organization, you need an entire workforce of people who are empowered to be transformational. Everybody needs to feel like they can make a difference. And when you've got that culture of transformation, you have to understand that you can only be successful if those people have access to the tools that enable the transformation. You will not be, no matter how hard you try, you will never, ever deliver transformation over email. Not even as an attachment, right? It's just not going to happen. We've got to start reimagining how you do your business. You think you know how you do business. I guarantee you the majority of your focus will be on the process of work rather than the outcome of work. If you start by looking, what is the outcome of what we do as an organization? What is the outcome that I am trying to get to as an individual? And you work backwards from there, you will see new ways to work. You will see different ways of doing things. And in order to make that successful, we have to enter the slightly sickly, sweet, cheesy world of North American motivational posters. Because this is where we understand that this is all about leadership and not management. And when I say leadership, I don't mean the people at the top. I mean leadership as a culture, leadership as a principle. Because leaders should be everybody in your organization, because good leaders, true leaders, they empower other people to be successful. And when you have an organization equipped with that kind of culture, a growth mindset, where everybody is trying to make other people successful, amazing things happen. Because you unleash the whole power of your people. Most organizations, they only think about their employees in a narrow domain of the skills they use to fulfill the job description. Right? Well, that's a tiny proportion of who they are as human beings. With the other approach, if you empower people to do the things that they need to do, they can use all of the stuff they have, all of their past experiences, the weird stuff they do on weekends that they think no one knows about. It all has value in the right place in your organization. And with the right kind of leadership, the right kind of culture, the focus on outcomes, you get there. But trust. It all comes down to trust. Trust is the big barrier because the employees don't trust us. And then we don't trust the employees. And we don't trust the government and the bloody technology company. We certainly don't trust them. We have to fix the issue of trust. We have to connect people to the purpose of what they're doing. We have to equip them with the right kind of technology skills. And the right kind of technology skills are not being proficient in Word or Excel or coding languages. It's remembering things like this. Computers are fundamentally useless. And this comes from a lovely quote from Pablo Picasso back in the 60s, right? It's mid-60s, he's in Paris, he's being interviewed for some art magazine. Why this question came up, I do not know. And remember, computers in mid-60s in Paris were very different to the computers we have today, but the answer is the same. So Pablo, what do you think to computers? Computers are useless. All they can give you are answers. I need something that can ask the right questions. This is our challenge. As humans, this is our opportunity. If we want technology in the right place, we have to ask the right questions. We have to be mindful about how we use technology. And I know that mindfulness is a really big topic and lots of people are talking about it. But if you remember nothing else, think about mindfulness as a spectrum. And as with any spectrum, there are extremes. On one extreme of the spectrum, there is what I would call the West Coast US definition of mindfulness. And this is where it's about meditation and Zen Buddhism. I'm not knocking that. If that's your bag, that's absolutely fine. But if nothing else, think about the other extreme of the spectrum. It's what I call the British version of mindfulness, which is just about being bloody pragmatic. So if you're the sort of person who likes to sit in a meeting with your laptop open taking notes, or you sit in a meeting with other people with their laptops open taking notes, and we all know that taking notes on your laptop in a meeting basically means catching up on your email or checking out Facebook, don't have the meeting. Bin the meeting. Walk out of the meeting. The meeting is a pointless waste of everybody's time. Similarly, don't be down the pub or in the cafe with your friends and family checking out your Facebook status. Pointless. The core skill, the crucial life skill for the 21st century is not multitasking. It is simply this. It is about being able to make a positive, conscious choice at any moment in time about whether the technology can help what you're doing or not. If it can, fantastic. Pick it up, engage, immerse yourself in technology. If it can't, switch it off. Leave it alone. If you can do this, technology will start to work for you. The other thing we have to do as leaders, and we have to do make sure in our organization, is that there is space for creativity. And we don't have space for creativity in two dimensions. The first dimension is we don't have physical space. You cannot be, you will never be, I promise you, as an individual, you will never be creative in a busy, noisy, chaotic, open plan environment. Your brain is just not wired to work in those kinds of disruptive environments. So you've got to have a different place to work. And it might be in your office, a quiet corner. It might be that you embrace a true culture of flexible working. In my definition, choosing the most appropriate location. But the other dimension is the most important dimension. And it's about having the mental space for creativity. If you spend your life in front of a screen consuming empty calories of information, more tweets, more email, more links, you never allow your brain to do the stuff that it does well, which is to make sense of all of the amazing things you've seen and done over the last few days. So everybody needs to take some time every single day to just connect with yourself. And it might be taking the dog for a walk, going for a run. And it doesn't matter when, but do it, and do it every day. And if you do that, I guarantee you'll be amazed at the insight that your own brain comes up with you and enables you to do greater things. So to close this, I just want to remind you, this is not my view of the future, right? This is not the Terminator, and believe it or not, the internet is not Skynet. I have a really different view of the future, and it's simply this. I want a world where we as humans can stand tall, high and proud on top of the shoulders of the digital giants that we've created. We use technology to lift our capability as human beings. And I love this, right, because this is a debate we've been having for years as a society. I remember when I was a kid and I was doing my maths exam, I was doing my maths O-level, and if you don't know what an O-level is, it's kind of like a GCSE but harder, right? It was a point in our society where we were debating the role of pocket calculators in the education of our children. As a result of that societal debate, I did my maths O-level with a logbook and a slide rule. Now let me tell you, I'm a better mathematician with a calculator than I am with a tabulated bit of paper and a slidey bit of plastic. Yes, I need to know the basics of arithmetic, but once I do, the technology lifts my capabilities in terms of what I can do. It's the same debate that we should be having today as a society. What we need for our kids, and for all of us, not just the kids, is I don't want a world where everybody knows how to use Word or PowerPoint or Excel or even specific coding languages. I want a world where every single member of our society is empowered with the core skills that make any technology work for them. Skills like critical thinking, deep thinking, the ability to collaborate, the ability to communicate, the ability to stay safe. If we make sure that every member of our society has access and can use these skills, then and only then will we as human beings rise up and live up to all of the potential that technology has to offer. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much.